Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of Community. I am here with my bestie, Maria.
Hey.
And Maria and I are going to talk about something that we know is so important when it comes to business. This comes up all the time with our clients. If you know about the social snippet, we not only have, 80 clients that we work with kind of day in, day out. We also have the Social Business Club, which...
You sounded so tired.
No, I'm so tired. 80. Lots of people doing lots of different things. Let me tell you. Actually, I did a discovery call with someone, and they're like, do you think you could work with my niche? And I was like, we work with everything from rugs to pet waste dispensers to, to personal brand couches. We got you. But what actually brings all those people together is their ability to tell a story. And that's like the most important thing on social. So we want to talk about how important storytelling is for business.
Yeah. And I think more and more, like we started 4 years ago. I feel like the tides were sort of starting to change because I think when we were growing up, it was a little bit more like, look at this awesome product. Look at this awesome service. You should buy it. And then people bought it, right?
Yeah.
And it was sort of about having this like professional looking brand and, like positioning the product or service well. And that was enough.
Yeah.
Right. And I think as the internet started to grow and social started to grow and it became a little bit more personal, I think more and more storytelling is the way to go when it comes to selling because people need that connection now. They need to understand, they want to support, especially for small businesses, right? They want to support small businesses and that story is actually really important to them. And it is what buys them into not only the brand, but also buying from that brand.
Yeah, 100%. Well, and I think it's like people buy from people. We say this all the time that people's stories are what bring us into them, bring them in closer to brands, but why we buy from them. It's why we see a lemonade stand and we buy like lemonade from the little girl, little boy on the street, right? Like it's like you hear the story and you're part of it. Actually, it was so funny. My friend, Akira, she texted me and she's like, hey, I just supported a young entrepreneur. I just bought the worst lemonade on earth. Hope you're happy. And I was like, that's not my fault, but you did support a young entrepreneur. That's what mattered.
Remember that young entrepreneur with the box of chocolates in that parking lot?
Yeah, she was hustling you. She tried to at first Maria fell for it so hard, but the woman or young girl, she was
young, like a child, like 7.
Yeah. Went up to Maria and basically was like, hey, can I sell you this box of chocolates? And then Maria's like, sorry, no cash. And then she was like, that's okay, I take e-transfer. And then her email was super legit. It was kind of crazy.
It was like Little Boss Girl 2009 or something.
Yeah, and Maria's like, I'm Little Boss Girl 1996. That's crazy. 4?
94.
Yeah. 2008. But yeah.
Just a baby.
I'm Little Boss Girl
but she really got me. But she got me with her story. She was so compelling.
Yes.
She was talking about how she's out here and trying to learn about entrepreneurship. Then when she found out I was an entrepreneur, she Uno reversed me and started basically asking me interview questions on entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
She really won me over by the end. But she was hustling.
And how much chocolate? You bought a lot. Didn't you?
This was then she started. So I was just going to get one. She's like, well, one's 8, but it's 3 for 15. You'd be silly not to get 3. She really had the sales pitch down.
Yeah.
She was definitely doing the most. But you're right. You buy into the story, the person, the why. I think the why has become so important for people. And even when you're at the store, you're looking at 2 products and one is just this random corporate whatever brand that you don't know anything about, and one is this small business founded by a local woman who had these skin issues and then was couldn't find this product, and then she started in her kitchen making this thing for herself, and that kind of story is what really you want to support her.
Yeah.
Who cares about Nike or whatever it is, right? That example with the cream. I don't know who's a big cream company, but Aveeno.
Nike, those Nike creams,
Those Nike creams didn't start in their kitchen.
I'm dead. Nike, if you're listening to this, we do care about you.
I had to find a business that I didn't feel guilty about.
Yeah,
That's where Nike came from.
Well, the first thing I think is it's really perfecting your story. And that was something that we really tried to kind of get into really early on. We worked with a story coach. We worked with Alex Street. I'll link the episode in the show notes of when he was on the podcast many, many moons ago. We were on his podcast as well. And actually, he was really helpful in us coming up with our story and kind of bringing it to life. Our friend, really good friend, Carly Ottaway, she is a maven when it comes to helping people get their stories out on websites and really kind of bring their story to life as well. And so, there's lots of people you can work with, but really it's just like asking yourself a few questions, I think, if this is something you're going to do solo, which is that, why did you start this business? Like what's important to you? What transformation do I offer? And being really clear on that is so important, because I think that's actually something that I think people, like one of the biggest marketing mistakes people make is they don't talk about the transformation.
Totally.
So what they talk about is the service. They talk about the what, but they don't talk about the why or the how, or they do talk about the how, but it's like the why is really what people are looking for. So, if you have a membership, you're talking about, there's 2 calls a month and there's, like a trending audio. This is how we talk about the Social Business Club. But like, how different would it be if we're like, hey, we actually bring together a community of entrepreneurs that, network, support each other. We provide some social media support and coaching so that they're able to grow their business and ultimately, and then we talk about a result that someone gets. Ultimately, they're making, long-lasting connections. Ultimately, they 2x their followers or whatever metric is important to you. And I think like that's the difference with a story, is like being able to show and take someone along for a journey rather than just being like, oh, here's what I got for you. You want it? Yeah. It makes a big difference.
Yeah. And I think more and more the soft sell is what's working over the hard sell. And I feel like the storytelling just makes the soft sell so much easier because it's more natural. It makes more sense. It's authentic. You can connect with it. And I also think for entrepreneurs, understanding your story helps you be a better business owner, helps you do your messaging better. Like not only externally when you're thinking about social and trying to sell a program and talking about the transformation, but like for me, when we worked with Alex and he sort of like brought our story out of us, it helped me so much with like understanding why we're doing what we're doing and how we got here. And it seemed even much more divine than I initially thought. And it helped me really see like my own purpose and value in what we were doing. And it really just helped frame everything for me. So I think storytelling is obviously so important for social and for those external marketing and messaging pieces, but also internally for the way that you think about things and process things and understand why you're doing what you're doing. And that informs the way you show up in all aspects, right? Like with your team, with your business partner, with your clients, whoever it might be. So I found that extremely helpful too.
Yeah, I love that. And I also asking yourself, like there's kind of 3 pillars when it comes to storytelling. The first is kind of that beginning, which is that aha moment, right? Where it's like why we started the social snippet is like we kind of saw how hard it was for people to do their own social media. The social snippet actually, the intention behind it wasn't to create an agency. It was actually to create the Social Business Club. But we just started serving clients and then it started to kind of to grow from there. So you start to realize like what your aha moment is. And actually when you share your aha moment with other people, sometimes people have a mental block on this where they don't want to share their aha moment because they don't like to show themselves at the beginning.
Yes.
Like because they don't want to show themselves as beginners, right? But that aha moment actually places you in the shoes of your ideal client. And that's huge. So if you're able to say like, hey, like I actually was you, and now I'm me, and you kind of want to be a little closer to where I'm at, but hopefully, maybe in some regard, I'm sure, and likewise, then that is actually more meaningful, right? Because they can see themselves in you and in the transformation you provide. But I know a lot of people, that's like a big kind of rub for them is like being able to position themselves as a beginner, even at one point.
Well, also, I think that helps set up the stage for the transformation, right? Because like if you were just always this amazing guru who knew all these things, then it doesn't really you're like you said, the client can't really see themselves in those shoes. But when you talk about where you started and how far you've come, it shows that journey of like what the after can look like. And it shows people proof it's possible too. Like guys, believe it or not, there were days where I would have to take an Instagram story 38 times before I posted it. And it took up hours and it was like a nightmare. And I had so much anxiety and it was the worst thing ever. And look at me now. I'm on this podcast. I'm thriving. We didn't even prep that much for this. So to show that transformation, it shows people that it's possible for them too. Because I think a mistake we often make when we're looking at people that are ahead of us, like mentors or coaches or whatever, is we think that they can do what they're doing because they're them and there's something special. Yeah. This was also something I thought before I started going to the gym regularly. I was like, oh, those people that like go to the gym, they're just like people who were born wanting to go to the gym. And that's just like not true. You know what I mean? Because we make it about our identity that there's something wrong with us or like we can't get there. But I think when you showcase where you started and you're a little bit more vulnerable about that and honest, it shows people that it's possible for them too. And then it also helps them understand that you're real and connect with you and see themselves in you.
Yeah, I love that. And I think the other piece too is like when you're really clear on who you serve, that's another piece is that often we are not super clear on who we serve. And like even though I would say one of the first activities, every marketing business course you take, Even if you join the Social Business Club, like one of our modules, we're like, tell us about your ideal client. Like, we're not like, is her name Jennifer and does she like Pilates? Like, that's not our vibe, but that's other people's vibe. But I would say, like, you need to be crystal clear on like who you serve and who you don't serve. That's a mistake. We just talked about this a little bit on our other podcast that we just recorded. But like, early on, we're kind of like, we'll do anything for money. Like, you want something? Like, early on, I was like, oh, I think I could probably build websites. And Maria was like, don't build people's websites. Like, don't do it. And luckily, she held me down and I didn't do it. And it was the right move. But what, like, early on, you're kind of willing to do whatever. You're willing to serve anybody. And I think, like, if you're in that stage, like, we can appreciate it. But the more you're able to niche down and be like, here's who I serve and why that's important and how I'm able to provide that transformation for you, that is when you're actually going to be working with those ideal clients. I am so happy to get on a discovery call with someone. I did a discovery call with someone recently. And this is a season where it's pretty slow for us, actually. Like, July's been pretty slow. June was pretty slow. I was off for a lot of it. And I got on a discovery call with someone. I'd love to make a sale. I'd absolutely love to make a sale. And I get on, and we're like 7 minutes in, and I was like, I'm just going to be honest with you. I do not think that we're the right fit because you're too early stage in business. And if I was you, I wouldn't invest in this. And I just do not feel right taking your money because they were like, yeah. And I was like, no. You're going to be way too tied to the results. Social media takes a bit of testing. This isn't what I would do. And she was really grateful for the honesty, sent her a package. She's like, I'm going to aspire to work with you. I'm like, great. It was very positive. But I know that that's not who we work with. We don't work best with people who this is their last dollar. If this is your last dollar, you can use the code podcast for the socialbusinessclub.ca. You can get your first month for $1. Use it there and do the modules and jump into the community. But if it's your last dollar, don't do that. But it's just that is a better investment than social media management. But I know that, and I know who I'm selling to. So I would really recommend that if you're like in a season where you're selling, that you have a really clear idea of who it is you're selling to.
Yeah. So going back to these 3 pillars, the first is the beginning, which is like the aha moment, right? And not being afraid to show that vulnerability, where you were, where you started, what kind of like peaked this story. What was the beginning of the story? What was the start of the journey? Second is the mission. So who you serve and why it matters. And then third is the vision. And I think this is one that's often very obvious to us in our own minds, but not one that's often I've seen communicated well or at all a lot of the time. So like, what are you building and why? And why does that matter to you? And how does that align with your values? And how does that align with your ideal client's values? And this has been like a huge piece for us that I never actually saw as a business strategy. We kind of just did it because it was like who we are and we wanted like values to be a part of our business. But it's incredible how many people like latch on to that.
Yeah.
And even our tagline from idea to impact, which came from our work with our story coach, Alex, speaks to that, right? So I think it's actually important for yourself, for your team, for your clients, for your marketing to be sharing what that vision is and what those values are.
Well, I was going to say, too, it's interesting because I think the vision, the values are important, but also building in the light, which is something we talk about all the time. We have a podcast about this that we can link in the show notes. But often people build in the dark. They like start building and they're like, oh, it's not perfect. It's going to be secret. And actually people want to be part of the vision, part of the journey. So even with us, with our events, like with Have I Women, we're often like, hey, we just sold another ticket. Hey, we're like meeting with an amazing partner. Hey, we just got an awesome sponsorship. Hey, and we don't do that to brag. Lots of good stuff happens. Bad stuff happens too, like all the time in our business. But we're not like, hey, a client just canceled. Maybe we can start doing that if we want. But really, like the element behind it is like you're bringing people along for the journey you're building with them, and they feel like they're part of it. So when it's finally time, like I've had it so many times where, and Chris and Lori, our mentors, friends, the Harders, they do such a fabulous job with this. I have been. Like, I was going to say duped, but it's not duped in a bad way. It's like I have waited for them to put stuff on sale and bought it instantly because of how well they market, like how amazing they do, where they build so much hype and behind the scenes. You're like, oh my gosh, that program comes out at 12 and I'm going to need that ticket. Like I've been at lunch being like, okay, it's almost 12. Like their Girlfriends of Business is going on sale and I can't miss the ticket, right? Because they do such a good job building hype and showing you the behind the scenes. And then you end up building a reputation, right? So I think it's really important that, you're showing people something that they can be a part of. And there's lots of things that you can do to really like to show that, whether that be behind the scenes stuff. Also another thing is like client wins. That's something that people do not do enough of.
Totally.
Where like, and this is something I tell people all the time, like in the Social Business Club, I'm like, there's nothing like someone else saying you're doing a good job online. Like, you know, until I'm blue in the face, I can be like, we are the best marketing agency. We provide amazing podcast services. I think the Social Business Club is like the biggest deal on the internet. and it doesn't matter as much as when one of our peeps posts and they talk about it. Thank you so much. Right. So it's like, that makes such a big difference, is like, you know, client wins, your lessons learned, things like that make such a big deal.
Yeah, and I think it's important too to like reflect on your own journey and your story as it continues to unfold, and actually making the space for that, whether that looks like meditating, journaling, counseling, chatting with friends, getting in a group like High Vibe Women, like however you kind of process what you're going through and what you're learning. All of that can be shared in the light. And I think more and more on social, we're seeing, especially with like creators and stuff like that, the trend is like, come with me as I figure this out.
Yeah.
Or like, you know, day one of me learning how to do this. Or and people want to go on that journey with you, because I think people are a little tired of being like preached at or teached at, or, you know, this holier than thou kind of attitude. They want to be along for the ride with you. They want to feel like they're figuring it out with you. And you really only need to be like 1 or 2 steps ahead of your ideal client.
Totally.
So you don't actually have to have it all figured out. But I think taking that time too to like, whether it be journal or reflect or whatever on your own story and lessons and impact, because sharing those things can just be so helpful to bring your audience in on where you're at.
Yeah. Love that. The other piece is also really just like posting content, you know, and this is something that we see a huge block on, where people like, I actually find it so funny, and I don't know if you feel the same way, but like when we go and like we travel to like the States and we go to events and stuff like that, my story views are up. People are after it. Like, they're asking all these questions.
I know. They're like, wow, your business is doing so well. I'm like, why? Because I went to New York with Christina.
Yeah, like, because I paid to do this. Actually, that was on an Amex. No, just kidding. But like,
your business is actually worse off after this trip. I'm just kidding.
Usually it comes back, but we can do an episode on that. Actually, it'd be kind of interesting if we did like a transparency episode, but that's not here nor there. But what I will say is like having content and posting it makes a huge difference. Someone who does a really good job of this is our friend Marina Middleton, the CEO of Create and Cultivate. We've been friends with her pre-Create and Cultivate, which is our claim to fame. And she's speaking at High Vibe Women. For those of you who are listening, if you're joining us at High Vibe Women, you can use the code podcast for $50 off your ticket at highvibewomen.ca. You can hear Marina speak, you can hear us speak, you can hear the whole shebang. But Marina does such a good job where, like, I'm always like, girlfriend. Like, you know, she's like posting these things of like doing her makeup and she's doing her hair. And I used to always kind of be like, this is a lot. Like, not about her, but like about people like posting this. I'm so invested. I'm like, where'd she get that hair stuff? I don't even have curly hair.
Her couch saga.
I know. Or her plants. That was another thing. I messaged her and I was like, we're getting close to this becoming a plant account, right? But like, you're so invested in all areas of her life, right? She does such a fabulous job. She's so excellent. And so like really just posting that content, just keep posting it and trying it and sharing your story. So whether that be like Instagram Reels or TikToks, like that behind the scenes kind of stuff, like that works really well. And people want to see that. Something I know that comes up for people all the time is they're like, I'm boring. No one wants to see this stuff. We think we're boring too. Like, and people do still want to see this stuff. So just keep thinking about like, okay, like what do people want to see? What would be most interesting for them? And just like getting into the pattern of like of posting.
Yeah. And I think, well, people do want to see your stuff and they do care about your story. But I feel like thinking about them. So what I do is think about myself as a user. And I'm like, if I came across this, would I be interested in it? And like, if not, what would make me interested in it? So how can you tell the story in a way that actually hooks the viewer and makes them invested and kind of tells it in a way where they get to benefit too? Like maybe they learn something or they get to come along with you on some kind of experience or whatever, right? And I think especially now it's got to be a little bit more fast paced. It's got to be easy to digest. But I think how you tell your story online can be so different. Like there are so many options. So just like record a bunch of B-roll. And I always tell people in Social Business Club, anytime you're doing anything, like just record it. Like you're recording a podcast, get a little tripod out and film it. You're on a Zoom meeting, film it. You're packing an order, film it. Like just film all of this stuff or take pictures or whatever, because you can get so creative with how you share your story on social, whether it be like a voiceover in a reel or text on screen in a reel or a carousel that walks them through a story. There are so many options for how you can actually share that kind of content.
Yeah. No, I love that. I think too, one of the things we recently were talking about, you and I, about how like grateful we were that we have recorded like basically everything that we've done for the last 4 years. So, and maybe even not as much as we probably should have, like, you know, but we have like pictures and videos and stuff of like, you know, the first time we got a client and like, you know, our first content day together and like all of those things. And so we can look back on that one day. That's going to be sick content. But like also look back on it and be able to tell the story of it. And the other thing too is really just like, if you're wondering, like just keep taking videos, keep taking photos, like just keep trying stuff. Even if you're not going to post it today. Like even I always say this when I do our workshop for people, but I always say, I'm like, we're in the best spot ever because like right now B-roll is so successful.
Yeah.
So it's like Jenna Kutcher says, like, you know, do 5 seconds of recording yourself a day where you're just recording yourself and it's just you, like, you know, having a coffee or like whatever. And it doesn't even have to set up a tripod. It can be low key. And then that's something that you have that you can use for B-roll. So all of that stuff makes huge difference.
Yeah. And I think the authenticity, the realness, the rawness is like what's really connecting these days. People are sick of the filters and the perfection and the Facetune and all that stuff. It's like, just film yourself in your natural environment. Maybe your desk is like a tiny bit messy. Like, that's fine. That imperfection is really what's connecting with people. So having that content be so raw and real is actually an advantage these days.
Totally. Yeah, it makes a huge difference. Well, wrapping this up, what I would reflect on and what I would invite you to do, anyone who's listening to this, and tag us in it because we'd love to see it, is like, you know, sharing a piece of your story. Like, you know, maybe it's something you do for the day. Maybe it's a walk you go on. Maybe it's your doggo. Like, maybe it's your baby. Whatever it is, you'd be surprised what people are interested in and what sparks stories. I've said this on the podcast before. I laugh about this all the time. But I have a German Shepherd named Patrick who has no interest in me whatsoever. And I'm obsessed with him. I used to post about him all the time. And I go on discovery calls and people will be like, where's Patrick? I'd love to meet him. And I'm like, oh, I didn't even know you knew about Patrick, right? Like, people are collecting data about you and trying to learn as much as they can about you before making a buying choice. So would really, really recommend that, you know, you just try something and try to post something.
Yeah. Your story matters and it's not boring.
Yeah, I
People
love it.
want to hear it.
Well, and then the other thing is I'm going to invite you. I already talked a little bit about the Social Business Club, but come on over to the Social Business Club if you're interested. We have an amazing community over there at thesocialbusinessclub.ca. You can use the code podcast for your first month for $1. It's an amazing community. The people in there are so awesome. But we really do a lot of stuff around strategy and support over there. And if this was of interest, we'd love to hear what you're going to try. You know, hit the subscribe button, the follow button, and we'd love to hear what you're going to try and how you're going to get your story out there.
Wee.
I love that every episode, Maria and I do together. We end with wee.
I don't know how else to end it, guys.
Okay, well, enjoy your day. Let us know. And wee.
Bye.